Hello, my name is Naomi and I'm the creator of Two and or Four, a company that makes handmade products for your two-legged loved ones and your four-legged loved ones. Today I have something that is really kind of for me. I am kind of chesty and I tend to drop food on my shirts, and let's face it, my chest acts like a shelf and it catches everything, and I'm tired of having to scrub my shirts every night with stain remover and other products. So I decided to make myself what's called a dining scarf. Now it's much better, sounds much better than an adult bib. And I think it has a little more dignity to it. And you can make it out of cotton. You can use a blend. You can use a knit or a woven. You really have choices on how to make it. And it's a beginner-friendly project because it's basically a 9-inch by 44, 45, which is standard width for cottons, and is enough for someone of my height or lack thereof, and covers my clothing. And it just has a velcro closure, and those of you who know me by now know that I tend to like reversible things whenever possible, and so the velcro closure allows for it to be reversible. I'm sure snap would also, if that's what you prefer. And honestly, I don't mind the look of it. So today we will take on this project. It's, like I said, beginner friendly. If you need to make it longer than the 45 inches of the fabric, and remember that the 45 inches, 44, 45, does not take into account the finished scarf, so you have seam allowances. And in fact, let's see what this one ended up being. So this tells me, this was 42, tells me the fabric was probably a 44, 43 inch fabric. I cut off the selvages. I might have cut off some of the edges. And let's see what it actually ends up being. So I did a quarter seam allowance, and so it ends up being 8.5 inches wide. So the first thing you want to do is pick the fabric that you want to use. And I've chosen this time, I'm going to use, I want to make another one so that when one's in the wash, I still have one. I'm going to use this fabric on one side and this fabric on the other. So I'm going to take this fabric and we're going to see what the width of this fabric is. So this fabric is standard quilting cotton, and so it is probably about 44 inches, because maybe a little less than that because you have the selvages. I end up measuring out a little over 22, but that includes part of the selvage, and you want to make sure that you cut off the selvages. This is definitely enough for my height. If you need to make it longer and you don't have any fabric wider than the 44, you would just cut 2 pieces. You would decide how long you want it, add for the seam allowances, and then you would cut 2 pieces. And remember, you're going to have a center seam. You would seam it in the middle. Right here where I have the tag, you would have a seam going across, and you're not really going to see it because it'll be in the back of the neck. So that's personally what I would do. But since I'm fine with the 44, I'm going to just use my fabric. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut off the top edge of my fabric. When you get fabric at the fabric store, it's not usually the straightest fabric. They don't, you know, they don't necessarily cut it perfectly straight. So even though you really only need about a 1/4 yard of fabric, I would probably get just a little bit more of that fabric, you know, probably about 3/8 of a yard, just to give myself the ability to give myself a nice clean edge, and then I could measure from there. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to cut off. I've tried to line my fabric up on a line on my mat just to give me some reference point. And then I'm going to use the line on my mat for the vertical cut that I'm about to make. And you're going to be cutting through 4 fabric pieces, so I would make sure to either press really well or to go across one more time before you take it off. And there. And don't lift your fabric, just leave it there. And I'm at the 24-inch mark. I'll add 9 inches to that. That puts me at the 33-inch mark. So I will put my ruler at the 33-inch mark. And I will cut my fabric so that I have a 9-inch piece. There we go. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to cut off the selvages. And I just use the lines on my, but even the selvages, I can tell, are not the same width. So I just want to go a little bit over. You can use the lines now that you know you've cut your piece. You can use the line at the top or the bottom to line up the edge of your fabric there, just to give you a little bit straighter fabric. Then I just kind of back it up and I'll use my ruler and I'll cut off a bit of the edge. And I'll turn it around and do the other side. Again, I'll just line it up on the bottom here. And And I'll just use my ruler. To give me a straight edge. And that's one side. Now for the second side, okay, so this is pretty much, I think, the same width. Well, this is a little narrower. So we'll just cut this one and then we will even it out with the other piece. And at first I was embarrassed to do this project, but honestly, I cannot be the only one that ends up getting food all over their shirts because they're a bit on the chesty side, and when things fall, instead of falling down into your napkin in your lap, it ends up falling on the shelf of your chest. Just need one more clip. And I just use these clips that I got on Amazon, and I use them just to hold the ends of my fabric on the bolt. Some people use pins. I prefer these clips. Anything to prevent myself from being pricked is great. All right, so again, I'm going to take this, I'm going to line it up on a line, and I'm going to cut off the edge. So I don't have any more of the selvage. Okay, flip it around. All right, and now these two pieces that I've cut are probably not going to be exactly the same length. So what I will do is, interestingly, let's do it this way. I will first take one side and I'll just join them right sides together. And I use clips for my projects. And you can sew this on a serger, or you can sew this on a regular machine, though there will be a point where you will need either a sewing machine to finish it, or you are going to have to hand sew. So you can do the whole thing on just a regular sewing machine. You don't need anything special. Okay, so remember I said that the two fabrics are not the same length. So now all I'm going to do is I am going to cut off this excess here. And that's it. Now, before I get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide that this fabric's an all-over pattern, so I don't have to worry much about it. I'm going to fold my scarf in half, okay, and find my center, and then I'm going to take one of my Frixion, Pilot Frixion pens. I love these. I have them in lots of colors, and they're great because one touch of an iron and they disappear. And what I'm going to do is, first I have my center there. I'm going to mark 1.5 inches away from my center point. On one side. And then I'll flip it over, keeping the fold. And I will mark 1.5 inches on the other side. So you're going to leave a 3-inch opening in your project. That will be so you can turn your fabric. Now, when I make my blankets, I do this a little differently. I actually have a tab, a 1/2 inch tab that I have cut out extra on the fabric. And you'll see when I do a blanket video why I do that. All right. So now I've marked, and what I will go ahead and do is I will put double clips to let me know. And I'm actually going to start sewing on this side. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah. On this side, I'm going to start at that point. So I'm at my sewing machine, and I am going to use a 1/4 inch or slightly less for me, because my machine is actually in metric, and but it doesn't really matter. This is just such a forgiving project, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing at the mark I made. And then I'm going to come all the way around and I will stop at the other mark, leaving that 3-inch opening. This is my Juki Industrial, which I absolutely love. It was a new edition last summer, and I just absolutely love it. It's the Juki FMS 9000C, and it actually has a computer on board, and another time I'll do a video on it. It will automatically do my back stitch for me, and it will at the end also do my back stitch and cut my threads. I just keep one hand on the fabric, not holding it down, but just kind of lightly guiding it, just so that it stays straight. Now, when I'm coming to the corner, what I want to do is actually do a 45, 1 or 2 stitches at a 45 degree for the corner. That just helps make a sharper corner. And so I will lift my presser foot. I don't know if you guys can see. Hold on. I've lifted my presser foot, and then I'm going to turn my fabric 45 degrees. Put my presser foot down. So let me just show you from this side that my fabric is actually at a 45 degree. All right. And then I will do 2 stitches, 1 or 2 stitches. And then turn my fabric the 45 degrees again and continue. Get to the other corner and I will do the same. Lift my presser foot, and actually I'm just going to do it with the hand wheel, and then keep going. And you can go as slow or as fast as you want, as you're comfortable with. My machine is pretty fast, and I don't even have it at its fastest. As a matter of fact, it's telling me I have it set at 1,000. It's 1,000 stitches per minute. I did the last one on the serger, only because I like to use the serger with my woven fabric, because it frays. But you don't have to, because none of the stitching is exposed. Actually, I'm experimenting on mine. I'm doing 2 of my corners with just 1 stitch and the other 2 with 2 stitches. I want to see if there's any difference. All right, so I'm coming up to where my opening is, so I'll pay attention to that. And I'm not perfect either. But since it's just a dining scarf for me, I don't feel the need to get crazy about it. All right, so I'm at the line and my machine will backstitch. What you want to do is backstitch. And then I'm going to trim my corners and turn it out. So you're going to want to trim your corners, and I'll show you how to do that. So I actually have another rotary cutter that has a blade that simulates pinking shears. So I just go across on the diagonal on it, and see, it's not a straight. And I do that at each of the 4 corners, making sure I don't cut the stitching. I've done that. And then we're going to work on turning it inside out. So you just gently start bringing it out. And I will show you what I use to get the corners out. All right. So I actually use 2 different chopsticks. This is just a cheap pair of chopsticks. I mean, next time you go to Chinese and you get chopsticks, just wash them off, and you can use them. And this one was actually Christmas gifts for my grandsons, and there was an extra pair left over, and rather than give it to one child, I kept them because I figured out that they were pretty good for turning, and it was kind of cool. They light up. So I just put it in, and I get my corner, and then I use the other one because it's a little finer point. You just want to make sure you don't push too hard, because it's cotton and you will break through the fabric. Find my other corner. And then I'm going to do the other side. Actually, I can do both corners with this one and then switch. And to see it, it'll light up sometimes. Okay, and all right, now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to press this out. And what I learned to do for the edges is to use my fingers to get it to roll and then roll it back. So roll it towards you and then roll it back, and just do that along the whole edge. And I'm going to shut my machine off because it's kind of on the loud side. So I'll turn it back on when I need it. That is the thing about industrials. They can be loud. So just again, doesn't have to be perfect. So just roll it. And I just go all the way around doing that. So I'm just going to give it a good pressing, but what I did want to tell you is make sure when you get to the opening that you press in that opening so that you end up with a nice crisp edge. Set your iron to the appropriate setting for your fabric. For me, it's cotton, so I'm on my cotton setting. And then just press, and you can continue to roll and press. I'm going to press that opening first, just so I know it's done, and I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, you see, because this side did not press well. So if I don't like how it came out, I'll just press it again. And this iron was an inexpensive iron, but wow, it has been a workhorse. And it gets very hot. All right. So once you have your opening pressed down, you can go around and press the rest. I'm not going to keep you here because the ironing board shakes. So I'm going to put in one of my little labels. So I'm going to find on the side that has the opening, the center point again, and I'm just gonna make a mark just so I know that's the center point. And actually you will need that center point in one of the steps that we're about to do. But first, I'm going to put my little label in, and I'm going to just edge stitch that opening closed, just on the very edge, as close to the edge as you can get. So I found the center of my little label, and I happen to know it's the D. And I put my label in, and I just put one pin in to hold it so that I could sew. So I'm going to go to the sewing machine. So I'm going to find where my opening starts, and you can mark it with pins or clips if you want. And I'm just going to back up just a little bit to make sure that I get the entire opening. And I'm just going to stitch right at the edge. I'll take my pin out first. And make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Like I said, my machine does it automatically. And that's it. You've put in the label. You are almost finished with your scarf. Just have the Velcro. Find your center point. Then open your scarf and fold it the long way. After you've found your center line, you fold your scarf lengthwise, matching the two centers. Then what you're going to do is 1.5 inches up, you're going to draw a 1-inch line, and I would put a 1/2 inch on each side of that center line. So find my 1.5 inches and draw. And if your marking's a little more than 1 inch, not a big deal. So I'm going to go sew. So you're going to sew, and you're going to back stitch at each end of your 1-inch line. By the way, if you have a favorite side, I would recommend that you have that side out when you fold your fabric. All right, I've sewn on the line, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2 sides up near the fold, and I'm going to kind of open them up, and then open up my edges. And what you end up with is having a narrower edge for your neck. And you can do a gentle pressing for a couple of inches. I wouldn't do a lot. I would do maybe 4 inches, 2 on each side of the center. So I just pressed the center a bit. And now you could technically just put it on and leave it just like that. But I'm going to put a Velcro closure on mine just to make sure that I have it closed. So in order to do that, put it on, kind of make sure your bottom edges are even, and then just kind of figure out where you would want a closure. I already know my measurement. Mine is kind of 10 from the center, and that's where I would put the top edge of my Velcro. I have Velcro both the loop and hook side. I have a 3-inch piece, but that's only because that's the way that I buy it pre-cut. So I'm going to use what I have. But really 2 inches would do it. You don't really need 3. And you could also use a snap. You could sew a snap in, whatever your preference is. So I'm going to go ahead and take and lay my scarf down so that I can put my Velcro in. All right, so if I didn't already know my measurements, what I would do is I would kind of make sure my bottom edges are even, and then kind of close it where I want the top to be, and I would put a pin on one side. Can't put it on 2 sides, otherwise you can't get out of it. But that's kind of more or less, maybe a little bit higher for me. Yeah. And then I would lay it down. All right, so then I would take a measurement, about 9.5. Yeah, it's about 9.5 to the pin. So I would take so let me show you what I mean. So I would measure from my pin down to the bottom edge, and it's about 9.5. We can go with 9.5. And I'm gonna put a mark. Oh, it figures I'm gonna use yellow, and it is yellow, so I'll use this. And I'll just put a mark right there. And that's where I'm going to start one side of my Velcro. All right. And then I'll move to the other side, and I'll mark off 9.5 again. And that's where my other piece of Velcro will start. And just to be sure, I will take my Velcro and I will put the top edge against there, and I would put it about 1/8 away from the edge, anywhere from 1/16 to 1/8. And then I'm going to put a pin through it just to hold it there for a minute. And then on this one, I actually want, you want to put the Velcro, so I put the hook side at this end, and I put the loop side on the other end, but on the reverse side. Otherwise, it won't be a reversible scarf. I'll put a pin on it. And then I'm just going to test to see if that's really where I want my closure. And for me, that works out really well. So I will go to the machine and sew my Velcro in. Take this pin out. All right, let's go to the machine. So I have one side of the Velcro on, which this happens to be the loop side, and I have the other piece of the Velcro on the other side, on the other fabric, and this is the hook side. All right, this way, no matter which way I put my scarf on, the Velcro will work. If you put it both on the same side, then you can't make the scarf reversible. All right. So then you just sew around the Velcro. What I did was I backed up my machine a little. It was very close to the edge, and I didn't want to turn at that point. Okay, just turn my Velcro, my fabric, and I just sew the Velcro on. Again, I'm testing to see, and I'll just lightly pull my fabric back. Or actually, towards me is really back. I had to think about that. All right, one side done, and now I'm going to do the other side. So here is your completed project, and I will put it on. Honestly, if you wear it just like this, it looks like just a scarf. And depending on the fabric you make it out of, you can make these pretty much out of any fabric. And there you go. That's it for today's project. If you liked the video and you want to see some more tutorials on sewing, please let me know, and please give the video a thumbs up, and if you aren't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.